Hello friends, my name is Beroz and welcome to my channel where I share with you tips, tricks that I read, learn and apply in order to become my best version. Now this video is part 2 of the video series on how to answer one of the most commonly asked interview question, which is what is your weakness? In first part of this video series, for which you can find the link above, I talked about why is the interviewer interested in knowing your weakness. Second is how to go about answering this question. Third, I shared a couple of harmless weaknesses that you can use in your interview as an answer. Now in this video, I will cover the following parts, which is 1, share with you structured examples for answering this question, and second, address any follow-up question that you should expect from the interviewer once you have given your response. Now let's quickly dive into the first part, where I will talk about and share with you a couple of structured examples that you can make use of as is to answer this question. Starting with the weakness, that is, I have hard time letting go of things or projects. When you've spent a great deal of time on a particular project or a particular task, you develop a kind of attachment with that task, and you feel apprehensive about marking it either complete or passing it on to someone else. There is always room for improvement, and some people tend to over-criticize their work or attempt last-minute changes which can threaten the timeline. However, this weakness at the same time can be construed as a strength, and let me explain how. For instance, last-minute reviews can help to eliminate any errors or make for more refined finished product. And for instance, if this is your weakness, you can share how you're striving to improve by giving yourself a deadline for all revisions and being proactive about all the changes. So you're not waiting until last minute. So in structured words, this may look like, my greatest weakness is that I sometimes have hard time letting go of projects. It is primarily because I am a biggest critic of my work. I can always find something that needs to be improved or changed. Now, in order to help myself improve in this area, I give myself deadline for revisions. This helps ensure that I am not making changes at the last minute. Also ensures that I have not left any part of the project incomplete towards the end of the project. So by the time I'm letting go of the project, most of the stuff that had to be done by that time is already done. And like this, I don't feel that I am passing an incomplete project to someone else. Rather, I feel that the part of the project that I'm passing on is already complete and fully done. It's the second or the third part of the project that the other person needs to take care of, and hence it becomes easy for me to let go of that project. Let's take another example, which is I have trouble saying no. So this is how I will structure it. One of my key weaknesses is that I have sometimes trouble saying no to requests and end up taking up more than I can handle. In past, this always made me feel stressed and burnt out. To help myself improve in this area, I've stopped giving a response either yes or no on the spot. Every time a request comes to my desk, I always send a response saying, allow me 24 hours to get back to you with regards to how and if I can address this request. This way, I don't feel pressure to say yes. And second, I am not saying no without any rationale. Rather, what I do is I go back to take my time to understand the priorities I have in hand and then evaluate whether this is a task that I can perform to my best or not. And now when I come back with a no, I can exactly say why I'm saying no to this particular project, because I have a strong rationale and reasoning to say no to it, which people in my team member or my manager would understand. Another one could be I get impatient when projects run beyond deadline. Because while expressing outward frustration and stress over missing a deadline can be a weakness, it can also be considered as a strength. Because employers value workers who place importance on deadlines and strive to keep projects within the planned timeline. So here's how I would use it. One of my key weaknesses is that I get impatient when projects run past their deadline. I feel very constrained by the deadlines and feel uncomfortable when the work doesn't get completed on time. To avoid a situation where it becomes stressful for me, what I've started doing is make sure I frequently review the progress of the project, so I can be notified way ahead of time if the project is about to slip its deadline or not. This way, I'm able to manage my expectations along with upward expectations, and for the most part come up with the solution where the team can salvage the deadline that we were trying to hit. Another one to use is saying that I struggle with maintaining work-life balance. I would go on to say because I truly love my work and have ambitious career goals, it becomes at times difficult for me to maintain a healthy balance between work and personal life. While I don't see an issue with this in the short run, however, in the long run, I start to feel that my motivation and energy starts to fade out when I am not giving myself a break and I start to burn out. As a result, I've made it a point to create space in my schedule to focus on my hobbies and non-work related things. Taking small actions like making sure that I have a proper backup when I'm going on vacation so I can completely turn off from emails or any other form of communication with regards to work. I have found that when I maintain a healthy work-life balance, my output is of higher quality. I can get more work done and I feel excited about coming to work each day. Another one that I also talked about as one of the harmless weaknesses in my previous video is multitasking. So here is how I will put it in words. I struggle with multitasking, which means that if there are multiple projects that come my way which needs to get delivered in the same time frame, I'm not able to work on all of them with the same attention and not able to provide the same amount of quality or output that is expected of each. So what I do is I always make sure that I assign my tasks a level of priority and align that priority level with my manager. So in this way, I'm able to categorize all my tasks into tasks which require higher level of accuracy and hence more attention, or those tasks which can do away with 80-20 effort and hence less effort would engage into those tasks. And this way I'm able to prioritize my energy into most important and urgent tasks versus tasks which are less urgent and less important. Now before we move into further examples, one watch out. Make sure any weakness that you call out in yourself should not be in sync with the strength that is demanded out of that particular role. For instance, if it's a long-term business planning role, saying that your weakness is that you're impatient with results will give an impression that you will not be happy in the role. Since the results cannot be seen or read immediately, rather they will take 2 to 3 years before the strategy is put into place and the results can be seen or observed in the market or in the business. Similarly, if it's a role which requires a lot of public and people interaction or requires a lot of social skills, then saying you are an introvert won't go well. Now with all that said, I would rather argue that if your weakness is not in sync with the strength that is demanded of the role and goes against the key requirement of the role, then frankly you should not go for the role altogether, because it will eventually be a bad marriage because you won't be happy and won't be able to give in your best for that particular role and in your job. Now coming back to the structured examples, another example I want to share is of the weakness that I focus too much into details. And here is how I would put it. One of my key weaknesses is that at times I get too much into details of a particular project and spend too much time into analyzing the finer points, which does pose a strong challenge on ensuring that the project gets delivered on time. So here I do two things. One, I try to ensure that I build in sufficient buffers in the timeline of the project so I can go into the relevant and required details where I do need to go into details, ensure there are no errors and everything goes and is done smoothly. And second, I keep a check on myself on regular intervals that I need to focus on the big picture all the time and make sure that the project on the big scope and the big idea gets delivered in time, as against going and trying to fix every small detail. Also gauging and understanding which details are required to be accurate and highly perfect and which are the ones which can be left imperfect. That way I can still ensure quality without getting caught up into each and every detail. So it doesn't affect my productivity and the ability for the team to deliver the project on deadline. Another one to use is self-criticism. Here is how I would put it in words. One of my key weaknesses is that I'm too critical of my own self and often feel that I'm not doing my best, or maybe that I'm disappointing the people I work with. This always leads me to overwork and then get burned out. Even though my supervisors have not complained about my work and performance, however, I still feel that I need to do more each time. To help with the situation, I try to implement the 80-20 rule more and more, which is to ensure that I focus on the 20% of the work which will deliver 80% of the results, or 20% of the task which will deliver 80% of that particular project, as against trying to focus and put in extra energy across every single dime and unit of the project. Another one to use is lack of experience. This one is usually a good answer if you're a recent graduate or are changing careers. So for instance, if you're a recent graduate, you can always say that while you have experience in projects that you've done in your college or in your internship, however, you don't have a hands-on experience as a full-time employee in an organization. This is kind of very obvious since it will sound honest, but at the same time would be harmless because the interviewer already knows that you are a fresh graduate. Also, if you're applying in a certain role which requires certain skills that you are missing, in that case, you can also use lack of experience as one of the weakness. Also, for instance, if the role requires certain expertise on a particular system for which you don't have knowledge, you can always use this as a key weakness as well. So for instance, if it's a programming role, I would word it in the following way. I mainly used Python in my last organization, so I don't have as much experience with Java. I did a course on Java for a few semesters in my university, but I haven't used it then. However, I'm a fast learner and very much passionate about programming. So whenever there's a new challenge, I would spend days, nights, and weekends to ensure that I learn that programming language as fast as I can, so I can deliver on whatever is required in my role or from my role. Here, make sure you sell the interviewer on your passion and on your hunger and on your strength of learning very fast. Because an interviewer would be okay to hire someone with less experience as long as they are convinced that the person they are hiring can learn that particular skill or system on job very fast. Lastly, my favorite one is using the personality type introvert versus extrovert. Here is how I would put it in words. One of my key weaknesses is that I'm an introvert. What this leads to is that I struggle with brainstorming on the spot. So for instance, if you call me in a meeting for brainstorming without prior heads up on what the brainstorming is about, I would be able to deliver half of what I can originally deliver if I was told what the case or the question or issue or project is about. What are we to brainstorm? Because given I'm an introvert, I prefer sitting at my desk, thinking of the problem, coming up with a few ideas, and then joining the meeting and sharing my inputs to the brainstorming sessions. Because being an introvert, I get most energy when I can sit alone with the problem and think about it, structure it in my mind before I can take it to other people and talk about it. Here, I won't give a recommendation on how I would improve it. Rather, the recommendation is more with regards to how to work around it. So how I manage around this is that I make sure that my team and my manager is aware of this, and hence try to ensure that whenever possible, they can share with me the challenge or the problem ahead of time before calling me into a brainstorming session. Just note, here I'm not giving an idea on how I improve on it, rather I've accepted it as a weakness. However, what I'm saying is I try to manage or work around it, which is I'm not improving on the weakness. I'm not trying to become an extrovert. I am an introvert. I'll be an introvert and I derive all my energy from being an introvert. However, when it comes to brainstorming sessions, there is a workaround, which is to let me know in advance what the brainstorming session is about so I can come prepared. Now let's move to the last part of this video where I will share with you a few of the follow-up questions that you can expect from the interviewer. So it's better to be prepared for those questions in case they come once you've given your answer to the question, what is your weakness? So there might be a question on as to why do you think there is a need to improve on your weakness. Here you can simply say that for me, the most important part is not to improve on my weakness. Rather, the most important part is to be aware of my weakness so that when I'm in a situation, I can get the required help and ensure that I benefit the most out of the situation as against failing. Another question that may be asked is, have you ever converted your weakness into a strength? In case you have shared your weakness, which can also be construed as a strength, in that case, you can immediately say, yes, I have. For instance, focusing too much into detail helped you pick up an error at the last minute before the project was about to get delivered. Or for instance, you can say since you were into details, you were able to pick an error in the forecast which saved the company from producing excess volume. Another question could be, have you ever suffered or been at a loss because of your weakness? Here it's best to answer the loss in terms of productivity. That is that you have suffered productivity loss because of your weakness. So let's say being into too much detail makes you invest a lot of time into details and hence puts the deadline of the project at risk. Or if you are an introvert, you need more time to think and plan about the particular idea or the project before you can engage it with the team or apply or action on it instantly. One final follow-up question could be, how are you managing or keeping your weakness in check? Here you can simply answer that it is all out of self-awareness. So as long as you are aware of that particular weakness, you can always keep it in check and make sure it is not a showstopper. And then if you want, you can elaborate more by how you are improving or managing around your weakness. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully this video and part 1 of this video series were helpful for you to now be able to answer this most commonly asked interview question, which is, what is your weakness? Thank you.